Hello, Elizabeth Moore here, and today I'm going to go over, you figured out that you have diastasis recti, so now what do you do? So I'm going to give you the basis for treatment, foundation. How do you start to close that abdominal separation and start healing that gap? So there are basically two principles that we start with to build off of when we start healing from diastasis recti. So those two things are posture and activating our transverse abdominis and pelvic floor. So first thing, a couple notes about posture. So why is it important to be in the correct alignment all the time? So when we are in the correct alignment, what happens is automatically the intra-abdominal pressure decreases. And as we know, the intra-abdominal pressure is what caused the diastasis in the first place. So if you can take that out of the equation at all the time when you are doing all of your activities during the day, that is automatically just going to put less stress on the diastasis, on that separation. So that is why it's important to be cognizant of your posture at all times when you are working to heal from diastasis recti. So a couple notes about posture. What you want to do is you want to stand with your feet pointing straight ahead. You want them to be directly under your hip bones, so not as wide as your hips, straight under your hip bones. Your feet should line up with your hip bones. And then here's the thing that I'm so guilty about, and I know a lot of other people are too, is you want to put your weight back through your heels. A lot of us tend to shift forward and put most of the weight through the balls of our feet, but you want to get that weight back onto your heels. Try it. Like, stand up right now and just try it. See where your weight is once you're just standing flat on the ground. Shift it back onto your heels and notice the difference in how you automatically start to stand up straighter. Then what you're going to do is you're going to drop your shoulders down and back. What I like to do personally is I lift them up, down, and then just drop them back comfortably. Nothing's exaggerated. You're not really arching your back or sticking your chest out or anything like that. It's just a real natural motion. And then my favorite tip of all is to pretend like somebody has a string above your head and they're pulling you straight up. So I love that cue. Just do it yourself. Put your fingers on your head, pretend like you have a string, and pull yourself straight up. So that's how you're going to stand up straight. You're going to stand straight up. And once you are in that good alignment, what happens, like I said, your intra-abdominal pressure is automatically decreased. And that's going to help with healing those structures. Now the second thing that we want to do is activate our transverse abdominis and pelvic floor. So how do you do that? I'm going to show you in just a second, but first a couple of notes. This exercise is really hard to do and it's really hard to teach. And because of that, the reason for that is because it's not what we think of as a traditional exercise. You know, a traditional exercise, something is actually moving. Well, with this exercise, nothing is moving. You're just contracting a really deep abdominal muscles. So why nothing actually moves is because the transverse abdominis muscles run horizontal. So the fibers run horizontal. So what happens when you contract those muscles is they go together like this. So that's awesome. That's what we want, right? You know, this is our core. When we contract those muscles and make them stronger, everything goes together. That is why I think that this exercise is a great exercise for anybody, whether you've had a baby or not, whether you have diastasis recti or not, because this is the foundation of ourselves. You know, this muscle is what helps to support everything that we do and everything around us. So just imagine that. You know, when you're contracting that muscle, it's going together like this. Nothing is moving. That muscle is just coming together and tightening up and becoming that binder and that brace that we need to support our core, which is the foundation of our being. So I'm going to show you how to do it step by step. So you're going to lay down on your back. You can do it in any posture. Laying down on your back is the easiest to start out with. So you're going to take your fingers and you're going to put them on your hip bones and then from there you're going to drop them off of your hip bones in towards your belly button. So why you put them there is just because what you're going to feel is a hardening underneath your fingers when you're activating the muscle correctly. So you're going to put your fingers, drop them off your hip bones, feel your abs. You're going to inhale, and you're going to feel like your hip bones here are widening apart. So they're spreading apart. And then on the exhale, you're going to pull that belly button up towards your breastbone. You're not sucking it in, you're pulling it up. And at the same time, imagine those hip bones that we spread apart on the inhale. On the exhale, we're going to bring them back in together. And at the same time, we're drawing our pelvic floor up and in to our body as well. So, as you can see, it's a pretty complicated exercise, and there's lots of things going on, and it's hard to know if you're doing it correctly. So here's a couple tips to make sure that you're doing it correctly. So like I said, those fingers are dropping off of your hip bones, feeling that inner abdominal wall. So what you're going to feel when you're contracting it correctly is just a tightening under your fingers. Your fingers aren't going to really pop up or anything. You're just going to feel that contraction going in. Another thing that I like to tell people is make a hissing sound on the exhale. When you do that, that automatically kicks in those deep abdominal muscle fibers. So that's a great way to make sure that you're activating the right muscles. And then another thing that I like to do for the whole thing, pelvic floor and all that included, is think of a zipper. So you're taking all the way from the bottom, a zipper, and you're zipping yourself up. And as you do that, you're just drawing everything up and in. So starting with the pelvic floor, draw it up and in. You're pulling your belly button up and in. This is not sucking your stomach in, because when you suck your stomach in, you're squeezing everything in there. So you're increasing that intra-abdominal pressure, you're decreasing the volume that's in your abdominal cavity, and you're kind of pushing everything out and down and not where we want it to go. When you're contracting the transverse abdominis, you're supporting them. They're closing in back together like this, and you're just really giving a good hug. Not a squeeze, just a nice tight hug, which is what we all want, right? So the last thing to remember about is the transverse abdominis feels like a really gentle contraction. It's about 30% of your maximum contraction, and why that's important to remember is because when you really do like a hard contraction, what you're doing is you're actually going to start kicking in the other abdominal muscles as well. And those are bigger muscles, and those are stronger muscles. And so what that happens then is your transverse abdominis will just kind of shut off, or it's not going to work as hard as it would if you're just isolating it. So it's important just to isolate that transverse abdominis, not to kick the other ones in, or you're going to be working those muscles instead. So I hope that these tips helped. Thank you so much for tuning in. These are the foundation that you would use to build off of as you would go through a core rehabilitation program for diastasis recti. Now, if you'd like specific exercises to do, I do have a free download. I call it my pocket guide to diastasis recti. And in that, I have 5 specific exercises that you can do after you get the posture and the transverse abdominis pelvic floor activation down, so that you can build on increasing that strength and closing that gap. So thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you have a great day.